I'd like to call to order the City of Saugatuck's Parks and Public Works Committee regular meeting for December 17th. If the clerk could please call the roll.
Chadwick. Hoffman.
Here.
Kimball.
Here.
Roach.
Here.
Stanton.
Here. Okay. Approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions? If
The
you
only
could,
thing I had was for the Saugatuck Harbor Natural Area from the meeting minutes, so it's labeled as C. It just says the Land Conservancy was governing the funds. And I think it was just, there's a lot of back and forth in the confusion. I think that got written in, so we can just take that out because it's actually the community foundation.
Okay, gotcha.
okay. Anything else? Could somebody please do a motion to approve the agenda with those changes?
I move to approve the agenda with changes for December 17th, 2024.
Second.
All right, this is a voice vote. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes from October 22nd?
Approve the minutes from October 22nd.
Do I have a second? All right. Any discussion? All right. This is a roll call vote, I believe.
Hoffman.
Yes.
Kimball.
Yes.
Roach.
Yes.
Stanton.
Yes.
And T. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, you don't vote.
Oh, okay. That's right. I don't vote. I take it back. These are all new rules to me. All right, on to public comment on agenda items only. If there's anyone in the room who wishes to speak and anyone online. Look at how quickly this is moving along. Okay, now we are on to our review and discussion items. Item 6A, the adoption of the Parks and Public Works Committee bylaws. Scott, if you'd like to take this.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Madam Chair, everything, all the language on the bylaws in the packet is the same, with the exception of Article 4, which outlines the process for electing a chair for the committee and vice chair, which is done annually in January. So at your next meeting, we'll have to appoint a chair and vice chair, and I think we'll probably just follow something similar to what we do at the council level for mayor and mayor pro tem, which is somebody will make a nomination and then get a second on that nomination, and then if there's no, it'll go to a vote after that. If it doesn't reach a vote count or a majority, then it'll move on to the next nomination and so on and so forth. So pretty straightforward process, but that's really the only change. So just polishing up the bylaws a little bit to tighten that language up so that we're in compliance.
Okay, any discussion on that?
I had a couple questions for Article 6, the duties. So one of the things, so Nancy would remember this too. So one of the things that came before us that was a little bit different was to make determinations on art, public art that is put into the parks. And so, I didn't know, I think that got bounced back to council, and I don't know if that would be under, number 3, perform additional duties as requested by city council, or if that is something that would then has been decided to be governed by council, because that kind of threw us for a loop a little bit of like, where does that belong? And then the other thing is endowments. So obviously we had a very large endowment for the airport property, and there wasn't kind of a real determination as far as like, is that something that the PPW works through? Should that immediately be turned over to city staff and council for that to be worked on? So I don't know if we want to get, a little bit more granular as far as like where those things belong. And we have other interests in endowments as well for Parks and Public Works, and hopefully a lot more in the future. So I think that might be something that we need to figure out if that's something we spend our time on, or if it's immediately kicked to council.
Fair enough. Yeah. The way the ordinance is written now, those two items aren't specifically outlined in there. I would think that, art could kind of fall into, parks in a way. So I don't think that it would be totally inappropriate to talk about that amongst this group. But as far as endowments go, being, just strictly a non-funded advisory board, that would definitely have to get approved by council.
So, but our recommendation from PPW could be, you recommend, where an endowment might want to go, or discussions you've had, and you can make that recommendation to council, but council ultimately has to decide, I believe.
Yeah, I just don't know if it's something that we even spend time on.
Okay.
Right, that would be like, because we spent an enormous amount of time on it last time as far as working through things with the endowers. So it's like, whose plate does that fall on in terms of figuring that out?
Is that something you
What
want
is
to
it?
ask our attorneys?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely could. Or even just Ryan. I think
Okay.
the manager would probably have an opinion on that, I'm sure. So,
Okay.
yeah, I'll bring it up.
But wouldn't it make sense if it was a park-related project that they were endowing, that we would want to be involved in the details? You know,
I
at
think
least as
so.
far
I
of,
think so.
as, you know,
I think
how
so. It just was
how
not
it's
straightforward, I guess. would be-
used. I mean, not, and I don't, you know, I've asked before and I thought just, you know, we want to, I think, start encouraging people to donate money for projects. And I thought there was something in the works about a foundation. Is that, because I think that would be an awesome thing. I think people would give us money if they knew there was a vehicle to do that.
yeah, certainly something to talk about after the first of the year, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
If we do the strategic planning session, I think that would be great. And that was something that came up with the 5-year parks plan,
Yes.
is to figure out whether it's tri-community or we work with existing, whether it's ODC or community foundation.
Okay. So if those things are items that we could ask Ryan, our attorneys, and then if we want to approve the bylaws after we get those answers, we could approve those in January at the January meeting?
We could, yeah. That sounds like a reasonable plan. Yeah, we'll ask them what their opinion is, if they have a strong preference for that. And if we want to, I know you mentioned you had some red line items for the bylaws, but you know, the feedback that I got was that these are going to be the bylaws
Okay.
as presented. So,
Okay.
um,
So is there anything more that we should do, or do we need to approve the bylaws at this meeting in order to get us to our next meeting in January where we elect the
oh, this
officers?
is fun.
I know.
I am not
Like
sure.
Sean.
I would have, I do not know what the answer is to
Could
that
they
right
be
now,
amended, can
so.
they be amended in January? If we approve them now, can we have a motion to amend them in January for any kind of
Yeah,
small changes?
I think we could.
Okay. And honestly, they're probably just clarifying
Yeah, I
questions.
think
Sure.
more so
You know,
that's-
I think they're clarifying questions that we can get the answers to, but our bylaws can still remain the same.
I would be comfortable with that.
Okay.
I think maybe it'd be, might be best to at least adopt the current bylaws, just so we're well positioned to appoint a chair and
That's what
vice
I
chair
think too.
for January.
Okay.
And then, like you said, Brian, that's a good point. Just make an amendment if we can, because we don't know if we can or can't.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, yeah.
So
So
at
do
this,
we?
yeah,
do
at
we
this
have the-
point,
Do we have the power to amend the bylaws, this committee, or that would have to go? to
Council would have to amend their ordinance.
Right, okay.
okay. And again, I feel like these are clarifying things that we could still, approve of these bylaws if you guys choose to do so. And then we'll get that clarified so we know, what we can do going forward.
Mhm.
Okay. So at this point, could I have a motion to adopt the Parks and Public Works Committee bylaws?
I move to adopt the Parks and Public Works Committee bylaws.
Do I have a second? All right, this is a roll call vote.
Hoffman,
Yes.
Kimball,
Yes.
Roach,
Yes.
and Teal. Yes.
Great. And motion passes. We will move on to our review and discussion items for item 6B, Department of Public Works updates.
Sure. Yeah, it's been a little while since we've met. So I think our last meeting was in October? And
Yeah.
so Public Works, that this time of year, it's really tricky. So I can tell you, it's not a very lengthy list, lucky for you, Sarah. Public Works was focusing on like winterizations, blowing out all the irrigation in the parks, closing up some of our more seasonal restrooms. And then from there, we had to take down fall decorations, start installing Christmas decorations. And then at the same time, we're contending with leaves. Leaves fell really heavily this year around Thanksgiving. And so, that was quite a bit of effort on that front. And then now we're at a point where, the trucks have to be converted and prepared for snow removal. So that's in a nutshell what we've been up to for the past month. Those are pretty big items. I think the focus now is just go through all the equipment and dissect some overdue equipment maintenance. So
Okay.
that's really all I've got.
Any questions for Scott?
Good job. My yard, you know. it's a nice-
It's always around Thanksgiving, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we'll move on then to item 6C, the Saugatuck Harbor Natural Area, and updates on that. Is that you, Kelly?
It is not.
Who is that?
Usually Ryan.
Yeah, I thought,
Mhm.
I guess there's no update then on that
Okay.
one at this point.
Well, I mean, we could review, it's, what we did last time is in the notes from, obviously, the meeting minutes from last. And I think it was to the point where we were kicking it to council. So that was my question for today.
Yeah.
Is what was gonna happen with that, because essentially Ryan had asked, Helen and I had worked on the management plan that was in existence when it went in 2012, and we had redlined that. So he had sent an email out via Sarah maybe a month ago asking for those red lines. And then I don't know where we're at. So essentially like that management plan needs to be updated. Then that needs to go to council is my understanding for approval. And then the next step would be, is it then Saugatuck Harbor Natural Area then going to be, you know, a study group or something, and that would need to be voted in by us? And I would prefer that, where our group would help with that. Or is it gonna be something that's added to city councils?
Okay. Yep. These are
That's
questions
what
we need to have answered.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's outlined pretty heavily in the last meeting minutes, and then it's,
Okay.
where is it, what's been done on it and where's it
Okay.
going? But he does have the red lines to the management plan.
Okay,
Okay.
so maybe that's something our attorneys are looking at, and we just need an update on that.
Could be.
Okay. Okay. All right. Any other discussion on that? All right, we will move on to the item 6D, the willow tree at Cook Park.
The-
Scott.
The willow tree at Cook Park.
Iconic.
Iconic.
Yeah.
So the plan still remains. In your packet, there's an arborist report. Unfortunately, that report recommends that the black willow tree ultimately gets removed. And so that's still going to take place, whether that's in January or February, I'm not quite sure yet, but it's coming. And in the meantime, our tree company did come and at least reduce some of the weight in the canopy to make it more safe. As you recall before, when it failed, we had, you know, caution tape around it because there were it was unsafe. And so at least it's at a point now where the safety's been improved, but it doesn't look very well. So that's gonna get taken out. I'm looking forward to seeing the chainsaw that can flush cut that stump because it's massive. And then that kind of raises the question, the reason it's even on the agenda in the first place is it's kind of an opportunity. Cook Park, that willow tree is pretty much the only thing in that park. And without its focal point, there's an opportunity for this committee to weigh in and put it out there. And if anyone has ideas for what they might like to see in that park, this would be a really good time to do that. There was a member of the public that reached out to me, and Sarah, if you could pull that up, and made a recommendation that they would like to see a circle of trees. Apparently this is something that this person saw out in California. It was a circle of redwood trees, and in the space of it, it was just kind of a peaceful, harmonious area in the center of it. And so that's what's on the board right now for consideration, but ideas are endless. So if anyone has any recommendations of what they'd like to see for that park, it doesn't have to be decided today. Maybe you have some now, maybe not, but it could always be discussed at the next PPW meeting.
Okay.
I
All
would-
right. Go
yeah.
ahead, Nancy.
I would say that since we haven't got to it yet, but we potentially are doing a strategic planning meeting where we really kind of review all of our parks, and we could potentially identify really kind of what are we lacking, or, you know, in our park system, what would we like to add? And then since we've got that opportunity, we could consider at that time, you know, well, maybe those things could go in, you know, to Cook Park, just, you know, so.
Great idea. Yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah.
And feel free to throw out ideas. I mean, it's a great opportunity.
And it's an area that we could, you know, make something maybe a little more natural than a circle. That's, you know, somewhere that people can still go and sit and be in a lovely place and catch some shade, you know, in years to come. But, yeah, that would be that's just for me, something a little more natural, a little more that works with our native species kind of
Yes.
idea.
Oh, you know, I'm
Yeah.
I'm all over that.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
There's always the option of not really changing it. I mean, that
Yeah.
park is a little tricky in the sense that like 4th of July, Venetian, that's where people congregate to watch fireworks and all the festivities on the harbor. There's not that many places to do that. I mean, Coughlin Park is a blank canvas. That's really good for that. And so is Cook Park. But, the plan is unless there's an actual consensus by the group to move forward with something else, the plan is just to simply replace it with a native mature tree. So it could be one, it could be a few.
Which may be the best option.
It's always an option, yeah.
So I'll throw out an idea just because I feel like it. So obviously we have all this beautiful wood that will take a couple of years to dry out before you can do anything with it. But I would love to see benches made out of it with a little placard that says it, like a picture of the old willow tree. That would look really cool on it. But I love the idea of even like a fire pit with those surrounding it. That is something we don't have in town. You see them in Holland, you see them in different areas. And, there's just times in, the spring and in the fall where we could use a little warmth and a little place to gather. And I think that would be kind of cool to put there. Or just use those benches wherever we might want to use them and just plant a tree. I mean, I just think there's different ideas on what we could put there. But I love the idea of making sure we save the wood in some way, because I know so many people want to do something with that wood. Are you, do you have a good place to put that?
It's piled at Public Works at the moment, so we just have a few different piles. One is kind of like the scraggly-er looking brush, and then some like kind of medium-sized logs, and then some bigger ones. So that's what we've got right now. But I've got a list of contacts of people that have reached out. There's maybe 3 or 4 people that have reached out and expressed some interest in obtaining some of it. One of them was a nice lady that they got married underneath that willow tree,
Oh,
and so they wanted,
nice.
yeah. So they can come and pick and choose whatever they want to take from it.
And are there pieces that are big enough for benches? And then are there smaller pieces that could be, I don't know, used for, yeah, exactly, for jewelry or whatever? Because I know some people had talked
Oh,
about that too.
yeah.
I don't know. I just don't want it to be a big burden for you, but also
Yeah,
keep
I
it if
mean,
we can.
It's not a burden, and we'll manage it as best we can and accommodate people. If, at some point, there's probably more wood than what people are going to come and use anyway. So at some point, maybe a year from now, whatever's left, we're just going to get rid of. So.
No, we're going to put it in the fire pit.
I know, it's like, exactly.
While we're on Cooks Park, can you confirm the tables that are in the park that are kind of adjacent to the,
Boardwalk.
they always say reserved for use by,
Singapore.
Yeah, it's their dock owners.
they're the
Yeah.
dock owners, but do they own the park? It always seems odd to me that our people come to visit and they walk along and there's these tables that I've never seen anyone use. And no one is allowed to use them unless you're actually associated with the yacht club. That seemed odd to me in a city park. That's what I'm asking, I guess.
Yeah, they lease it from the city.
Yes, and I'm questioning the wisdom of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's been that way for a long time. So it's, so a lot of them are either dock slip owners or they lease them for the season. And that comes with your, boat slip lease. And then they lease that portion so they can put picnic tables and I assume dock boxes and all of that good stuff, right?
Right.
But
yeah.
there's no picnic tables for anybody else to use.
Right.
And it just seems odd to me.
There
you
are
know?
a few usually at Jones Park, and they get moved throughout the summer, so sometimes they'll end up in the grass, but there are a few.
It's a good point. Yeah,
We could talk about it at the strategic planning session.
yeah.
When Scott and I talked about it, was a little while ago now. This is when it first happened. So the wood from the willow tree, he kind of educated me on, it's not the best for Milton wood.
Right.
So is there anything more to say on that?
We would never
Big
plant.
pictures too, and then he said it's like,
Yeah.
it's really kind of thready.
Well,
in shreds.
I mean, it depends on the craftsmanship, really, but this is the type of wood where, the fibers just get kind of fuzzy if you sand it. It's not dense wood. It tends to warp. Willows by nature retain a lot of water. So when they do dry out, they tend to really get kind of cracked and, not a lot of woodworkers would opt for it, but that's not to say that you couldn't make it into something beautiful if you had it.
With a lot of epoxy.
A lot of resin, epoxy, yeah.
Well, and maybe it could be like, take some oak and then put some in it, somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, right, exactly.
I mean, I wonder, do we want to make this sort of an event and put it out to the public? And it's like, again, we don't want to put too much work on DPW, but it's like, can we have someone who wants to volunteer their time or something to kind of cut and say, hey, let's do this thing. Everybody, it's a beloved tree. It's iconic. Come get this piece of Saugatuck history, make a donation to the parks and doing that or whatever. So then whoever wants to use it, it's out there, whatever. I don't know if that's.
Yeah.
too
And
big a
it's
deal.
probably how long did you say it would be until the wood would be?
Well, I mean, you could
Usable.
kiln dry it right now and it would be ready tomorrow, but that's expense.
Sure, yeah.
So I mean, you could get a portable sawmill to come in and slab everything up. I mean, how far you want to go with it? I would say Public Works would want to be pretty well removed from it, from that process. But if, and then there's additional liability with that too, of people running chainsaws, and where would that be? Would that be on city property? There'd be quite a bit to it to unpack. I'm not sure.
Plan it on being the Christmas ornament for like 2 years from now. Small
Yeah.
business, red ribbon.
That sounds,
That's actually a great idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't
I
know.
mean,
we
you
have
don't have to, it's not the
we
same
have a
amount
lot
of
of-
woodwork.
retirees with a lot of talent
Yeah.
in our community and a lot of woodworkers. So I don't know, maybe we just, all of us throw it out to people that we know and just see if it's a possibility to take DPW out of it. And not that we would let people come willy-nilly with their chainsaw.
yeah.
No, I don't know if it could be like a very kind of goodwill to the community type thing. Raise a little money, have some fun, whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm throwing it to the group and
Yeah.
we'll think about it.
For sure. Any other discussion on the willow tree? Okay, we will move on to our next discussion item. This is for item 6E, study group and other staff updates, invasive species.
Keith I sent Keith an extensive list of both with their common and Latin names of invasive species that we're experiencing now, along with about 30 or so photos of what that is to put together for a Google document. I know Nancy is going to be getting it together of native species list. So we'll have a comprehensive list of things that are happening now.
Okay.
And what they can look for in an easy spot that ideally we can load up to our website for the city. That if people are interested in what's bad, what's good, we can put it on there, and hopefully that'll encourage people to take things out of their yard if they find them and replace them with things that are native.
And then what to do with them, right? Like,
What to do.
that was always my question. Okay, I've pulled these, now what? Like, where do I put them now? What's the
Yeah.
best thing? So it would be really nice to have like a
Figure out.
guide on what to do with them once you identify them.
There's numbers to, contact the state, but I'm not sure if people, there's burn. But we can't do that here locally,
Okay.
but to see if they are so inclined to take them or how some other way we can dispose of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be great.
No, that's a
Go
really
ahead,
good
Nancy.
idea because a lot of them, especially if they've gone to seed, you just have to put them in the trash. I mean, because you can't compost them even because the seeds will still sprout. So, but we could incorporate that into this document, I think,
Yeah, that's a good
Like a what to do. Yeah.
the best way to.
Yeah, and it sounds like something we could have, pushed out on social media where here's the link that you can go to for specifics, but here's, like some bullet point ideas that we can put out on social media. That would be great.
Well, and even to get rid of them, like Scott, you probably know Japanese knotweed. Every time you pull it, it only gets worse, and
It comes back.
so I know one of my neighbors was telling me she had contacted DNR and they said, you just have to cut it off and then keep cutting it so that it can't basically, regrow.
Okay, because
because
when
it
you
doesn't
pull
have-
it, it like,
It just it just spreads almost when you try to pull it.
Stick,
Okay.
and then mulching over it to just kind of.
Suffocated. Yeah,
Yeah.
but, so I think those kinds of tips too, like,
That would
oh,
be
you,
excellent, yeah.
right, don't just pull it because
Mhm.
it'll just go crazier.
I know when I lived in Lexington that we used to do something similar, or just put newspaper down,
Mhm.
mulch on top and kill everything.
Yeah.
And the newspaper could stay because then that would degrade and just go in.
Right.
Yep. So is that something that the next step would be to make sure that document is, up to date and,
Yes, to add things as they come, because we're also looking at what's 5 years down the line, as our climate fluctuates, what we should be looking for. But I like the idea of what to do with them, because that was my thought too, as we're sitting there, it's like, well.
Right.
So we'll have to work on that, so we can add that to it.
okay, okay.
There's also, I mean, I don't know if this is on the radar of the invasive species, but I know, because we, on our property, we have some hemlock trees. The, woolly adelgid, I think it's
Mhm.
called,
Mm-hmm.
is, you find that in the winter. That's the best time to find it on the hemlock trees. It's like this white waxy spore
Okay,
that's on the branches underneath. And it's visible in the winter and it's very treatable. We're having our trees treated right now.
I know what I included on it, I know I included aquatic plants, I included, bugs, things that we have to look for, as well as regular garden plants and whatever's happening in the invasive species, but I'm not sure if that's out there. So we can
Okay.
look through things and add it as it goes. It'll be easy to do, as, it's put together as a Google document, and we can.
yeah. I know on council, we've, paid for the treatment of the woolly, the woolly A,
Yeah.
the woolly A.
Woolly-
So, but in the Harbor Natural area and I think airport property too, right? No, it was just
It's
mostly on the
yeah,
other side of the
Sagatuck
river.
Harbor Natural
Okay.
area, and Mount Bald had Oval Beach. I think there was like 70 some acres of
Yeah,
forest that was treated.
right.
Treatments last fall when I was out there with the 8th graders.
Mhm. So that's something, I know we paid for, it was a line item, it was budgeted that we, paid for the treatment of that. But with any private property owners, I would think there would be some education that, here's how to treat it, from a professional and that sort of thing. That would be good information.
Yeah,
Um,
something on the State of Michigan website that. Which was nice. It had a little video showing people how to find it and, ways to identify it, and it was really simple, so.
Good, good.
includes that.
Yes, there's links included in our list.
Okay.
Great.
With the state of where to look.
Great.
So.
Okay. Any other discussion items as far as invasive species?
So to your point, Lauren, in the budget, city council budget for this year, so there's invasive species line item for $100,000, which I know a lot of that goes to milfoil, and I know it's a collaboration with Douglas. I know we've treated the hemlock trees. Just because we're having this discussion, we're trying to do a little bit more with it. Do we know what else the city's actively?
I think that's
using that
everything.
budget
Yeah,
for?
I think that's everything.
And do you know, like, does it eat up that whole budget? I mean, is that why?
Yeah, I would, as far as the costs of like milfoil treatments, I was never really involved in.
And we got a
that-
donation from Rotary to cover the cost of that treatment. I believe like the full amount almost, right, is like $10,000 that's treated a couple times every year. So, yeah, we got a donation for that. So we might have some extra money to cover other things.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like, as we do strategic planning, like looking at, okay, right now there's $100,000 allocated for it. Is that used in full? Is that something that we need to, as a committee, say, hey, we need a little bit more?
Right.
In talking with Scott and then some of the other experts that come through. I
Good.
don't know.
Good. Okay. All right.
No, that's
Anything
good.
else?
Good question.
Okay, we'll move on to the airport property then. Is this you, Scott, or is this someone
Yeah,
else?
I don't
Okay.
think there's much of an update on that. I think Ryan mentioned that he was gonna reach out to the ODC and just say like, what's the schedule? Where are we at? When's the parking lot gonna start taking shape? And some of these things are gonna start taking flight. So other than that, I think he's waiting for an update from ODC on some of those items.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? All right, we'll move on to Blue Star Multimodal Path. Nancy, is this you on the update? Or any update?
Well, I guess I'm not sure how much we have talked in the past about the fact that MDOT had come back to us and said that there were some tribal concerns about the path. And so that's basically our biggest concern right now.
Mhm.
And so we've been trying to get more information about what those concerns are. To date, we have no information, but Scott, did you get copied on the emails that there is going to be a meeting on Thursday?
Mm.
You should probably be included in that.
Yeah, I think it's,
Um,
yeah, Ryan and MDOT, right?
It's
That's the
MDOT,
first I've
right,
heard of it.
and MDOT, and then, Daniel from Township
Oh,
and
that's right.
Ryan, and then, Richard Donovan, who's on the Friends with Me. So anyway, the MDOT person basically said that she cannot give us a lot of information at this call, but she's going to give us some kind of an update.
Okay, good.
And then I think that the tribe had indicated that next year they would be willing to meet with, a very small group, which I think would be like Ryan.
Keith, welcome. Nancy, anything more on that? Yeah,
No, it's very concerning.
Yeah.
Because we really can't move forward until we get these resolved.
okay.
And that's basically it.
And as far as the traffic signal, we applied for a grant and we did not get the grant for that, but there are other grant opportunities that I know we are looking into as far as the traffic light at Lake and Blue Star. So I know that
That-
much. Yeah,
That's good to hear, because I would think even if we don't get the grant, it's something the city should take on, just my
Yeah.
opinion.
right, right. Yeah. Okay, any other discussion on the Blue Star Trail? Okay, we will move on then to the Village Square and Playground. Scott, do you have any updates on that?
Yeah, this might be a good opportunity for the group to weigh in on this because, the city was approached with a person that wanted to make a donation for Village Square Courts. And we've all been kind of abreast of that scenario. And really, the theme of, in order to accept that the donation, the donator would really like to see a project move fairly quickly, which is not usually government style. But but there's a few different options on the table. It's like, the donation was rough, was a certain amount. I'm not sure if we ever talked about what that amount was. I'm not sure. Sometimes with these things, I'm not sure what I can say, but,
I know the amount, but you don't have to
Okay.
tell me.
Yeah.
So, but the question becomes, is that something that we really want to pursue? Because in order to like just simply resurface the courts, they're not in compliance. So do we want to kind of move forward quickly with a project and just simply resurface something that's existing? Or do we want to take a step back and say, no, if we're going to move on this, it really needs to meet modern compliance in terms of size and accessibility and whatnot. So that's where it becomes kind of a question for everybody here to weigh in and say, what are our thoughts as a group? I know that the person willing to make the donation was more interested in a basketball court over the tennis court. So what might be a valid option is, taking the money and seeing what we can do with it with the basketball court and just kind of leave the tennis court untouched for now. And that can always be a project for a future date. So really it depends on what the city's wanting to do on this.
All right, go ahead with any questions or discussion.
Scott, can you comment on what are we out of compliance on? Like what changes would need to be made and
Yeah.
do you have any idea on the process that would take, through city process?
It's specifically the size of the court. That's the biggest issue. So they're too small. To put them back into compliance, like what's
It's
existing.
like full court, not too small? Is that what you're talking about, too small, or
Uh,
like wheelchair accessibility and that sort of thing?
Both.
Both.
I don't know though. All I know for sure is that engineering is stating that like the basketball court its existing concrete is 42 by 96, but a regulation court is 50 by 94. So I do think it's a full court. It's just, we're just shy of what a regulation size would be.
Can you repeat that? 42 by what?
42 by 96 is what's existing. Regulation would be 50 by 94 plus 3 feet of an out of bounds.
Yeah, gotta have that.
Yeah, diving for that wall. So
We work with what's there.
we can work with what's there. It won't be, we could take the donation and just see, get some quotes and see what we can do with the money.
Is it for resurfacing? Is it for redoing? Is it for hoops? Is it for poles? What's it for?
Yeah, so it depends. So if we want to go all out on this and make it, within spec, then the total would be about $300,000. And that would include, seating and new hoops and so on and so forth. The money, for the money donated, we'd probably just be able to get away with more of like a resurfacing and potentially some new hoops.
That's a lot.
I think we could definitely talk to the person wanting to donate this money to say, hey, what really needs to happen here is it needs to be regulation, and we would love to make it regulation. Are you willing to help us make it a regulation court when you are opting to help resurface this beautiful basketball area?
If we had to redo it to a regulation court, do we have to rip the whole thing out and put a new bed in, new substructure?
That would be part of it. Yeah, they've got, F&V submitted a, pre-designed cost estimate. And, I'm seeing that they're bringing in, sand. So it's basically, sand sub base, 6 inches of that, grading, excavating. So it would be tear it out and redo.
Did they mention drainage and all that? Because is this quote from a viewpoint of like an area that freezes, unfreezes? It's on the side of a hill, gets water.
I don't think, there's maybe a little bit of standing water periodically, but it
I
always
know
goes
people
away.
that
pretty
use
quickly.
that surface for basketball courts, and it's just, it's fine for the winter. Yeah.
You play basketball?
I sure do, Keith.
Good ice
We can talk about it. Yes. Yeah, the kids definitely use that court downtown. So,
They do.
yeah.
Another piece to it too is, if we did go with if we had the appetite to put it back into compliance, then we could pursue like a DNR grant for it, but engineering didn't seem optimistic about getting awarded the funding for that, because generally speaking, they target communities with lower income. So that dings us as always. So I don't know that, chasing any grant dollars is worth, coming into play, but there's also the possibility if we get going down the road of reconfiguring it and putting it back within modern standards, then, another donation might come along as well. And so.
So right now there's 4 hoops, right? On the, when you're looking at it's the right side, there's 4 hoops there.
The basketball court?
Yeah.
2.
There's just 2?
One.
It's just like, why
And then
couldn't
you
you
go
go
up.
with the other direction? You know what I mean? Like,
Is
'cause
the hill?
Well, if you, yeah, possibly. I mean, if you needed to.
We
you know,
could reimagine it. Yeah, that's for
yeah,
sure.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
To make it regulation, I don't know what would, like that direction would give you more room to make it regulation. Yeah,
Like
There's
towards
no
Butler
hoop on
Street.
the other side.
I
which
know,
no
it's
one
this-
ever sees.
it's
next
that
to the
small
park.
one
Yeah,
that's
it's just
over-
2.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think everyone forgets it's there. I've never seen anybody use it.
I know. And again, the reimagining of that
I know.
part could be down the road where we,
Right. Correct me if I'm wrong, there is no sidewalk, no paved path to the basketball court, correct?
Yes, there is.
There is.
There is.
Not the tennis court, but there is the basketball court.
Okay, so from the bathrooms, is that where it comes off?
You'd have to
Is it
go
from the
walk along
street?
Butler Street. Yeah, Butler Street side.
Okay. And there's a break in the bushes and you can go
Mhm.
directly to the court. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking from an ADA perspective of like,
Mhm.
if you're wheeled, you can get up there.
Yeah.
So, okay. So we don't really need to change that.
I guess it comes down to whether we are willing to accept the donation to just resurface, even though it wouldn't be regulation, or if we either ask for more or don't accept the donation because we want it to be like fully imagined to what it should be.
Shouldn't we see what's realistic? I mean, not to be a downer, But asking for a $300,000 donation.
Yeah.
To read, that's an ask. But if we have someone that we're doing it and we can reconfigure it to make it workable and better.
Mhm.
I mean, is that maybe the better way to go? Because, and also in the idea of, you said the donor would like to have this resolved quicker rather than later. So if we're gonna chase down grants and all that kind of thing, well, that proves that, from the get-go.
Yeah, it's more of a take it or leave it kind of a approach, just to, do you want to do this, make it an improvement maybe to the basketball court and see how far we can go with the money, or, is this going to get ripped out and reimagined? So.
Is there any money we had?
So I asked Ryan that question last week when I met with him. So there's the $1 million that's in restricted funds. And right now that's still sitting there. And so then there's a decision that's gonna be made. I think my understanding is by city staff, whether the playground funds comes out of that, which at the time was $336,000. And then obviously there's other expenses with Scott's team that had to go in and do all the prep work and everything else. So it's a question mark as far as with the way city council set the budget. Do they want to pull out of the restricted funds? Are they gonna leave it? Because there are additional dollars that they'll pull the rest from. So we don't have an answer for that yet.
Okay,
So as of now, the parks budget is $1 million to my understanding, having met with Ryan last week.
okay.
So, but I guess my comment on this would be, we've been talking about this for quite a while now. The donor came forward. I mean, I can't remember the exact date, but it was probably this summer sometime. And I was super excited about it because, those of us that have been here, it is very difficult to get things moved forward, i.e. like the airport property. That would not have happened had we not had Endowers come forward, right? It was not a priority for council. It was something that was priority, for us to move forward. And we happened to find people that were interested and, aligned with that vision. So I think finding extra dollars for this is difficult. And we've been talking about what the reimagined space would be like since the very beginning of this. So 2.5 years. And we found when we wanted to move the playground across the street, there was not an appetite for that. And then obviously we found out the playground was in such poor shape that we needed to move immediately on that. So that is now obviously staying there. So there was not a huge appetite for a ton of change. That is a place that's used. We've had letters written in by the public that people would like to see it as a basketball court. I personally think that having had conversations, there's more opportunity to do more of like a multi-sport court over for the tennis court side. To do pickleball and tennis courts and maybe something else over there. So I would be for moving forward because I think it would sit well with the public. I also think it sits well with council budget. And that is the heart of our city. And so to continue to invest in that space and for people to see that, I completely agree that I think more people are coming forward because they do see us investing in our public spaces. And like when the airport property, the airport park is done, I think people are going to see that. People have been raving about the playground and more people have come forward with saying, hey, I'd like to spend some money. I think that's in part maybe why the donor came forward. Is they see that we're investing, they see the new space and this is adjacent to that. So, that's just my 2 cents on that is that.
And it could use sprucing up. I mean,
For
the
sure.
basketball court looks tired.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, just to clarify, so are you saying, your opinion would be to move forward with, accept the donation, stick it into the basketball court and then evaluate, the tennis court for more of a multi-use court?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can go back to, Glenn and I did drawings way back a year ago that we presented on like, what would those 4 quadrants look like? And I still think there's a lot of opportunity because in the end, we really wanted to activate those spaces, like bring people to those spaces because they were, before we started this committee, really tired and old and not being utilized in the way that they should, especially because that is the heart of our town for the locals and also the heart of our tourist district for, the economics of our town. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's my 2 cents because we just really, as a committee, and even I think we've talked with a lot of people, have not come up with any major changes. I personally would love to see futsal there and I'd be happy if that is of interest. I would be happy to present on that and have
Wait, what, you wanna see what?
futsal. So it's just it's like a European version, like a urban version of soccer.
Oh,
And it would be used identical, other than the paint would change, like there'd be paint for soccer and basketball on the same court. And then they make them for urban settings where there's a little goal that's metal and then your basketball hoop is above that.
Oh,
So it makes it multidimensional. You can use it so like kids could come down and play both. that would require a chain link fence behind, because even though it's a smaller, more weighted ball, it can fly. It doesn't often, but it does. It can, and we have very close proximity to that business that's behind, so obviously you don't want to do any damage, so that would be in addition. So it's not like a complete one-to-one ask, right? Of like, it's just what's there. So if we were to do anything, I would love to see that happen especially for the kids in our community that I know, like futsal's happening in Grand Rapids. It hasn't moved here because there hasn't been an opportunity just now. One of my kids is playing in Holland, so just moved there this winter. They use an indoor basketball court, but this would be an opportunity after school and all summer long for them to be outside doing that. So I brought that up before, and I haven't moved on that. So if that's of interest, I think that could be something that could be pitched. And again, we could still accept the
And it can be added- it
donation.
can be
We would
added
have
later,
to
correct.
change the parameters. It would just be able to be used in two different ways. But I don't know if we need to go through full approvals for that as well through us and council in order to make even those changes, put up a fence.
Yeah, I mean,
Fencing on one side, not the other.
I think it would be in our best interest to give the donors, like, here's what this would cost, here's this, if you want this additional thing, these are the add-ons that would make it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like we have to present, I mean, as long as we're okay with a resurfacing with, things that could happen beyond that, depending on how much they want to donate. You know what I mean? Like if it's a donation and it costs this much and that's what they're giving. I don't know, how much more out of council's budget where we would say, yeah, we could do these extra things and it might not cost that much.
Cover the
But
additional.
those are the additional things that could be in addition to the donation.
Let me ask another.
Yeah, go ahead.
That might be out of, do we know what kind of refinishing we're talking about? Is it gonna be concrete again? Is it gonna be something softer? I mean, I just think about liabilities.
We didn't get into that portion of it. I think that this is more like a pre-designed type of discussion. So that would be incorporated in the design.
Because if we're gonna, have more activities there, what is our responsibility as a city if someone gets injured? Do we know that?
Well, we looked into it, obviously, with the airport property,
Yeah.
and I know Helen walked it with Ryan and the attorneys, and the way the laws are set is that it's very much in favor of the city and public space being available, right? So,
I mean, that's.
and it's already used for that, so, I don't want to speak out of turn.
Yeah.
But it already is used for sport, right? So I don't know that that would change, but we would obviously have to look into it.
So just thinking back to when we started our committee and we started the study groups, and this was one of our study
It
groups.
was, yep.
I was just wondering, like, we've kind of a little bit gotten away from that because we had talked about even involving, like other people in the community in our study groups, and it's.
We did.
We did,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
but we've kind of stalled on that maybe.
Mhm.
And so I'm just wondering if we would want to kind of resurrect that and then really think about the space and really both sides of it, the tennis court side as well. Because then if we could kind of say, well, here's what we'd like to do, I think people would come forward with donations and that type of thing.
Mhm.
So we could either keep this real small and just try to figure out what to do with this basketball court right now, or maybe make it a little bit bigger. And Kelly, I'm looking at you because you were the one who was in charge of that before.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I agree. I totally agree. I mean, I think that's why we need to do a strat planning meeting, because we were really specific when we started out, and then things evolved and we got a lot done and we checked the box on a lot of things. And now we need to go back and decide what are our priorities and how do we want to do it. And one of the things we did is we did have a group that was appointed to work with us on Village Square and specifically the playground. So we did have outside.
Timing wise, when is so our next meeting is in January. Is it before or after the strategic planning for council? Strategic planning for council is January 24th.
Yeah,
Probably after.
this would probably be right after.
Because
I
we're the
think ours
fourth
is after,
Tuesday.
'cause I asked Ryan about that.
It is, because this is our one shot to kind of, that's why we have priorities on.
Ours is January 28th, so it's always the fourth Tuesday of the month, and I think yours is the week before with council.
Okay.
And so he was saying you guys would have one planning, and then we could do And that was the question. I know it's on the list, so we can get there. So it's like, what would that look like for us? And then, the hope was is that like, we put together like what our interests are, what our priorities are, what the hope would be for 2025, and then
Mhm.
we're aligning it more so that we're sort of walking together with this stuff.
Yeah.
And Scott will be at the strategic and I'll be there obviously, and we can like share some of the ideas that have come here. Just so they can have a look at some of the ideas we're talking about, so we know. Yeah,
Yeah, this is kind of leading into one of our
Well,
agenda items.
Yeah,
Or-
and the question would be is, maybe for Ryan, is what has the discussion been with the potential donor on this? Because this is not a new conversation and these things have come up before. So I don't know how much has been shared or if they've just come back and said, nope, this is the only thing of interest. So we just maybe need confirmation on that too. And I know you want, they want to move fast. Or,
Mhm.
as
Yeah,
much as
I think at this
possible,
point, they're looking for feedback from the city, like, and
Okay.
including this committee. So,
Okay.
do you want to take the money and run, or do you want to?
We're in a
I think this is what it comes down to. Are we gonna just take the, amount of money that is basically resurfacing, which I know would be beautiful. I know you've probably seen some of those surfaces that they've done that are just really beautiful. But it probably wouldn't allow us to make it, regulation and I don't know if it would include new glass hoops or just keep the old ones.
Yeah, update the surface and then, update the goals and net.
Goals in net.
Yeah, the
Okay, so we might get glass
hoops, yeah.
hoops. That'd be nice.
Yeah, it'd be better than what's there.
I
So,
mean, I'm just
mean-
saying, that would be nice.
Is it a situation where they're gonna?
Yeah, if there's, I got the sense, I can't predict, but I got the sense that if we keep going back to them with language about applying for grants and we don't know what we're doing,
Right.
they're gonna walk,
Okay,
so.
that's fair.
Well, if we can reuse the hoops and the glass and all that stuff down the line, I say we accept it with graciousness.
I agree. I mean.
So what we could do is at the
Because
next,
we would see something happening there, right?
The alternative is then we need to come up with a plan for the funding ourselves,
That
you
would be
know, and
probably
there
double.
are obviously a multitude of projects that deserve our time and attention
Mhm.
as well, that we could then shift. And if it's gonna be a basketball court and it's gonna also stay a basketball, it goes from basketball court to basketball court, I would love to see it expanded into multi-use, but if that's gonna take a really long time to get consensus on from the public and everybody to be comfortable with, I'm willing to pass on that.
And the way I see it is where the tennis courts, pickleball courts are, that's not being touched. And so that's something we could do in the future and expand that and do different things with that while the basketball hoop gets its little upgrade. Not little upgrade, but a really nice
Yeah.
upgrade.
Give another
Right?
corner.
Yeah.
So this would repave it, but not expand the footprint. Is that?
I believe expanding it would be too expensive,
but
right?
focusing on one court, like the basketball court, would allow us to resurface it, get it. We could get it into compliance and redo the hoops
Ah,
for the money. So I think we could stretch the dollars far. We don't know exactly how far, without moving forward with some sort of a motion to accept the donation. And then at that point, engineering could do a little more in-depth design work and come back with some deliverables and renderings of what we'd get for the money.
that'd be great.
Yeah.
So whether that's at this meeting, I don't have a motion prepared for you right now, but you could, move forward with a motion to accept the donation and then bring that forward to council. Or you could wait until the next meeting, give it a little more thought, wait till the next meeting. I can put a motion in front of you to accept the donation. We can go that route.
I say we accept it now.
I'm comfortable with accepting it later. I would like to think on it, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. Do you guys feel comfortable waiting? I know you guys are in the ballpark of wanting to accept
Well,
it
if we
now.
accept it later, is it gonna deter any kind of timeline as far as getting the project done?
I don't think a month will. I think a year or two will. Yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
get
Let's
it.
talk a month.
I don't think a month will, if we kick it down to the next meeting and have a motion to bring that forward to
And what are
council.
we looking for in the next month that we don't have now?
more details on what we would get for the amount of the donation, I think, right?
So you're looking to do a cost analysis on basically what the money's gonna provide in relation to the quote.
Maybe we just have a little bit more information by then.
And me personally, is I would reach out to community members that are really involved with the school and kids and have kids that come downtown and just say, hey, is there anything else you would like to see there, right? That we should hold out for? It's just ideas maybe that haven't been generated by this group.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll wait till next month then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to our discussion item 6E5, Park Street, Mount Bald Head improvements and the AT&T status.
There's no update on that. Engineering in the city, we're moving forward with the restroom still as planned. We've had some conversations recently about some of the electrical upgrades in the area, and the reason that's been a little bit of a discussion is because it involves some of what maybe our future plans might be up on top. But no real updates. I think they're still working through, engineering is still working through permitting for the upper platform, and restrooms are still planned,
Great.
as we heard last meeting.
Any questions or discussion on that? Okay, let's move on to Maple Street.
Maple Street, the only update is that we recently, last week, the city had a meeting with the township just to spark that initial conversation about a potential cost share. And so we had some engineering estimates that we broke down during the meeting, and, we found out that the townships actually has, a project aligned for the same time frame, which is fall of 2025, for some drainage work, and then, additional sidewalk on the east side of Blue Star Highway. So, that's gonna be a piece to our construction project for Maple Street, because if they're doing any sort of work on Blue Star Highway, the de facto detour becomes Maple Street, and we can't do both at the same time.
I
So,
know. Maple.
that's,
I mean, I know,
it's so bad.
I know.
So
Drainage project that's going on in Blue Star?
drainage and sidewalk,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, fun,
So,
right?
a lot of moving pieces. I think the township, just seeing their initial, they were just given the cost estimates, within the past month or so about this. So they're still, kind of relating this back to the updated Kalamazoo Lake Sewer and Water Authority agreement, and how their responsibility might play into Maple Street for this, but then, yeah, they're not financially prepared, for this level of a project. So the township manager is going to start evaluating funding sources for their portion of it.
Any,
Does that mean, do we have a timeline on delay or like, just, it's in
not
process?
yet.
It's being discussed. Initially, we were kind of moving forward with,
Yeah.
2025, but, the sound of it might be 2026. Might.
Not be in your budget this year.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
isn't that
Or,
crazy?
Yeah.
but it was broken down in the budget. It was broken down across multiple fiscal years.
Couple
So like
years.
design,
Yeah.
that type of thing, survey, that was incorporated into this fiscal year. So.
There's still parts of it that we'll be paying for this fiscal year,
Mhm.
even if it doesn't break ground till later.
A lot of prep work.
Yep. All right, anything else? All right, we will move on then to item 6F, priorities and strategic planning, as we kind of started on.
Yeah, so this was put in the budget, or I'm sorry, in the packet, just because, like I said, this is your last meeting before the city council has its strategic planning session, in which, it's when they set their priorities. So if there's things that you want to discuss about our priorities, or, that Lauren and I can, Madam Chair and I can bring forward to the strategic planning meeting, this would be the time to do it.
Well, I think that it would be better if we had our own strategic planning meeting in advance of that meeting, like in early January. We could get together for maybe an extended session and really look at, all the potential priorities, kind of refer back to the 5-year plan. What does that say that we should be working on? And then we can also brainstorm other ideas. And that would be a way to move forward, rather than just, I feel like we started out big picture, but now we've kind of gotten a little bit just like reactive. And so what does everybody think of that idea?
One thing I'm wondering about is with council, we have basically a moderator person that kind of helps with that. Is that something that you guys would want, like like an outside person help with that strategic planning? I'm just asking. I don't know that it's there, like, for us to pay for or whatever else, but I'm just curious if we need
Does
somebody.
that's what you do with the council?
Yeah, we have an outside person and it really does help.
And it's
I-
a kind of a guideline and
Yeah.
just walks the path with you. That's not a
Yeah.
bad idea.
We've
Yeah.
never
Otherwise, I
had
could throw out a half a dozen things right now, but.
Yeah,
I think it's a great idea.
yeah.
Yeah, so we've never had that. The only time we had, outside consultancy was for the airport property project. Right, we had the ODC lead the SOAR analysis.
Mhm.
I think that would be incredibly helpful moving forward.
Is that
I just don't know, I just don't know what kind of budget. I don't even know, it's an ask. It would be something that I would have to ask.
So remind us of the kind of the cart and horse situation here. So council would have their meeting the end of January, third week of
January
January.
24th.
And is that council gets together and throws out ideas and starts to work through it? Or is it then set in stone? Because I know you don't vote on budget until June, correct?
Correct. It's just more of a priority setting, like we list things and say, nope, this is like a deferrable project that we like the idea of this project, but it's deferrable for this year. And then we go through things and this is an absolute must. Like these are items that are like, we have to have this done. These ones are, yes, we'd like to have this done, but not as high a priority as some of these others. And it basically becomes this ranking system. And it's a great way to get through. We have a lot of projects in our city that everybody has their heart and soul that they want.
Mhm.
But we have to rank them,
Mhm.
especially, on a year-to-year basis.
So after that meeting, do you then task to that or is it revisited again? I'm just trying to figure out what makes sense timing wise for us to get together. Because it sounds like this meeting should have been a prior, like a strat meeting, right? So we should have all come together with our ideas, hashed it out, and then that would have, if we were.
Well, I think if council has ideas, because they're the ones that make the ultimate decision on what we put our money towards. If they have their priorities, and hopefully they just align well with.
This is a little bit backwards in the sense that, ideally, we would be taking direction from council on what they said is the priority. This is just kind of an opportunity to say, hey, this is what our interests are. This is what we think.
Yeah.
So this is a
I
little
don't-
bit backwards from that
And look at the
standpoint that,
priorities and see where ours crisscross and work within that.
Well, I think,
Is that a possibility? I mean, in terms of, if we can't have the strategic meeting now, we'd have to have it after your meeting. You'll know what your priorities are, and then we can figure out where we fit in and do what we need to do. That-
Right, but to me, council's got so many things to focus on, whereas we're very concentrated on one specific area. So we should be generating the ideas that we present to council more than just reacting to what they say.
yeah. I just know that, there's some projects already in the works, right? Like the upper platform at Mount Bald Head, the bathrooms at Mount Bald Head. Those projects are already in the works. They've been budgeted. Some projects that were lower, that were on the deferrable bathrooms and a fish cleaning station at Coughlin Park, for example. I just think maybe you guys throw out ideas that, Village Square Park, what are our priorities there?
We could go
Um,
through a list of almost all our parks and
Mhm.
go through them and see where they're at in relation to where they are now, what they could be, and where they've been years ago,
Mhm.
and what they need.
And
I
I
think
think it's okay that our strategic planning is later because maybe it's just what's next, right? Like what's after this year, looking further ahead. Because we already know that you guys got a lot done, obviously with the playground and airport property. And again, we've got some projects in the works that are high priorities for you guys as well.
That was a
Um,
good meeting in the beginning of January, actually, to do this.
Right, I mean, we really have them, 5-6 weeks before our next meeting. So, but if we're going to try to use any kind of a moderator, there might be scheduling issues, I would think. That's
Okay.
the only, otherwise I would jump on it and say early January because that's a great time to do planning because you're not outside doing anything else.
This might be something that we have to toss back to Ryan and ask him if that's something that we could put together, an early planning session prior to city council's meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I know under a certain amount, we can move things forward. We, in full transparency, have never done that. Because we've always just put everything to council just to try and have an open relationship,
Okay.
right?
So
Never
I
just-
think my next step is to ask Ryan if it's something where we could have some sort of special meeting, a strategic planning before councils. So then we feel better about what we're recommending to council. So it's just a matter of talking to Ryan, finding out if a moderator would be willing to work with us. Maybe it's the same moderator, maybe,
Yeah.
maybe in that time frame. Maybe it's
Oh.
like a day before, I don't know. It's just
Yeah.
it's questions that we need to ask, I guess.
Yeah.
And maybe, it's a shorter session because we're more specific. So maybe she'd be willing to help us, the day before or, earlier in the week.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Just a
I,
thought.
I agree with the fact that like we need to be aligned. There, there has been a little confusion with like, are we in charge? Cause again, council's so busy with coming up with the ideas. And then council takes those and then prioritizes from there.
Mhm.
Or should it be the other way around? And there's some things that have been on our list for a really, like Saugatuck Harbor Natural Area. There's an endowment for that. We're not gonna need to ask council for any money in order to steward that land appropriately. What we need is council to just vote on it and move on. It's like so simple.
Mhm.
So while it might not be a priority for council, we need to get it on
Yeah.
the meeting list, voted on and done so that we can then do the work.
Easy breezy.
That's an easy one, like the Michigan Green Communities. Is that gonna happen? That opens January 1st, right? Through May. We've talked about that for a long time now. This first stab at it would take staff time. It's not gonna take a lot of dollars. And that's something that we would need to then decide, okay, is there gonna be budget for it in June? There's little projects that we've been working on for a long time. That we just need a yay or nay on, that we put our time against or we don't, we move on.
Mhm. Good. All right, so that's something Scott, if you want to just have a discussion, I can have a discussion with
yeah.
Ryan about it, whether it's something we could do.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
okay. We will get back to you guys on all of that and hopefully have an answer. Okay. All right, now we will move on to public comment on anything you wish to speak about. Anybody in the audience? Anybody online who wishes to speak? I'll take it a little quick beat in case there's anybody online. Lisa or Ashley, they were both on there if they wanted to say anything. Okay, all right. Okay. All right, so we'll close public comment then. And then I didn't see any correspondence in our packet this time. So we can move on to member closing comments. I can start with Nancy and go around the horn. So Nancy, any closing comments from you?
Well, first, I guess, welcome, Lauren. Happy to have you here. Sorry, you're taking over from a very able leader. Then just a couple of things that we've never really talked about, but I wanted to get them maybe on our radar screen. And one is the idea of us becoming a dark sky community.
Mhm.
And so I don't know if that's ever come up with council, but it's really come up in my neighborhood of late. Scott knows about this.
So much.
Yes.
And so just to give you a quick little history. So, I live on Spear Street. We're kind of a cul-de-sac all the way at the end. There's always been a street light there. Like a couple of houses down from the actual end of the street. The street light, according to my neighbors, I've lived there 6 years. Other neighbors have lived there over 20. The street light has never worked. And everybody on the community in our street has been happy about that because we prefer to have the dark sky.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, one of the neighbors decided that they were no longer happy with that. They reached out to Consumers Energy and the light has been turned on full LED.
Oh.
And when the snow is on the ground, it almost looks like you're in a stadium. I mean, it is bright and I'm like 3 doors down from it.
Yeah.
So everybody's upset about it. We want the light turned off. I don't think there's a recourse to actually do that. But anyway, it's kind of gotten us all thinking more, big picture. Really, you've heard of dark sky communities. There's so many things that are bad about all this, artificial light. It's bad for the wildlife, obviously no one can see the scars. It takes a lot of energy, and some communities have adopted this program, and it's actually almost then becomes a draw. So it can kind of almost benefit the community. So this is a big idea. We're not going to solve it, in the next 2 months, but I just wanted to kind of throw it out there as something that could we start to have a conversation or maybe make a study group, something like that. So that was one thing. And then the other thing that, is near and dear to my heart, some of you have heard me talk about is Peterson Preserve. And we've never given that very much attention. And there's a lot of invasive species there. I think a lot of things that could be improved. It's a little jewel in our community. And it's such a great place where people can get away from the hustle and bustle of our town, especially in the summer. And, we've got a few benches there, and you can look out at the preserve, and it's just lovely, but it needs a little love. And there's a lot of invasive species, and I would just like to see that actually become something that we focused on as well. And just maybe just to toot my own horn, I asked Scott a while back if I could, there was an empty bed that was, had a nice border around it and a lot of weeds in it. And so I said, hey, could I put some native plants in there? And he said, yes. So I did.
Yeah,
So
great.
just to get the ball rolling.
That's so great.
Okay, that's all from me.
All right, Nancy, thank you. Kelly?
So I want to welcome Lauren.
Thank you.
Happy to have you here. And I want to thank Helen Baldwin, Chairwoman Helen Baldwin, who served with a lot of passion and conviction. And we were so lucky to have you, and you are already missed. So I want to thank you for that. And then airport property, the only thing that I forgot to say when it went through is the naming process. That was in our minutes from before. That is something that it appears that needs to be with council, and that is going to open this spring. So we need whatever way we're going to do that. There is not a process, then we need to do something with that. And I think that could be fun. So
Absolutely.
I wanted to mention that, and happy holidays to everyone.
Great. I'm just going to add that this position is not necessarily a council position. So the chairperson does not have to be a council person. So that's something that we'll be deciding in January. So think who, I have not been a part of this group, so I'm not saying I would like to be the council person. I think it should be one of you. But that's something you guys will vote on. I'll be a part of the voting. I can't vote. So there's that. But think about that. This is not, I'm new to this group, so I don't think I should be the chairperson. And then the vice chair, again, could be like somebody within the group that has been a part of this group for a while. So I look forward to being a part of this. I am glad I got assigned to it, and of course, wanted to be a part of it because you guys really roll up your sleeves and get things done. So thank you for all the work you've done the last few years. It's been huge. So happy holidays as well. Keith?
Hi.
Hi. Thank you.
I want to apologize for coming late as usual. Where do I start? Brian sent me some stuff on, and I apologize, otherwise I would have commented on this before, some invasive species. Terrestrial plants, aquatic plants, and I started a Google spreadsheet earlier, but it did not, wasn't a Google spreadsheet. I started an invasive insect and tree diseases, and I started it on Apple numbers, but I realized that no one can open Apple numbers. I'm going to transfer it to Google Sheets, and I wanted to bring it up today so that actually I'll print some out and I'll pass it on later on. I'll send it to everybody so that everybody can contribute to that. And in relation to Peterson Preserve, those darn little, what do you call them? The things with the flowers on them. The big,
Oh, the purple loosestrife?
yeah.
The band was this.
They're
Yes.
invasive.
Yeah.
At Peterson Preserve. The other thing is, I was approached by somebody who wants to do a Friends of the Park program.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that would make it easier for donations to come into us. And it would get, I think it would, not instead of, but it would also actually be a conduit for people to actually comment on stuff and donate money and time. So someone approached me with that. I don't know too much about it. I've been involved with the 501(c) members of the Friends of the Library. So it's not that hard to start Occupy, but it involves members of the community, and they, of course, they don't have to live in Saugatuck for that, but it would be a Saugatuck project. I've been in contact with Mark, and I can never pronounce his last name.
Heidlinger.
Nylinger?
Neidlinger, thank you.
Yeah.
From the high school, he's in transition. He said it would be really easy to appoint a couple kids to put together a website actually with some spreadsheets for the invasive species.
Great.
But he can't, since he's in transition, he put me in contact with Melanie Moore.
Yeah,
So that's.
she's
who-
the interim middle school
Mhm.
principal, middle high school principal.
So that's who I've been in preliminary contact with.
Great.
I think that's about it. What else is on my list? The naming project, which you talked about, and I know I'm late to the party on this too, because I wasn't here on time. I think it would be a great thing to involve the high school, the school system. Kind of like how they got the Trailblazers.
Mhm.
I think it's a way, if you involve the community and I think, I don't know how to go about that, but I think that would be a great way to do it.
Okay.
Let me see what else I got. Maple Street, you already talked about, I was here for that. So,
Okay. All right, Brian?
Welcome. You heard everything I had to say already. Looking forward to the strategic meeting.
Great.
That's it.
Thanks, Brian. Judy?
Same, I think the strategic meeting ahead of the city's meeting would be a great idea. And then also Nancy's comments about the dark sky community thing, we had same thing on our street. First few years we were there, streetlights didn't work and it was amazing. Blaring,
Yeah.
and it is very much that LED.
Yes.
So yeah, if there was a way that we could prefer to have them turned off or dimmed or something.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Great.
I'll trade you.
Yeah.
Neighbor that will not allow a light on in the neighborhood, and he will not get your door. I don't care what time it is.
we have owls in there now because nobody turns on their front lights.
We want owls.
Exactly.
Nice.
We had owls.
Yeah, here at midnight.
At this point, could I have a motion to adjourn? Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, you guys.